on eNCA.
Hello again. A third of South African teenagers consume alcohol, according to the Association for Alcohol Responsibility and Education. It conducted research with over 1,000 young people. Let's discuss the findings now with Mokebe Thulo, CEO of Aware.org. Mokebe, good afternoon and thanks so much for your time. I must admit, when I read this, I thought, okay, that's not so bad. You know, I expected that more teenagers would be experimenting or trying their luck with their parents' liquor cabinets. But tell us what it is you've actually found. It is worrying enough, a third of them. What is it that you found in your research?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you so much for having us this afternoon. Yes, it is rather disturbing. I mean, the data that we had before this piece of research was done was that at least 50% of 13-year-olds had reported to having their first drink. Now, this specific piece of research tells us that at least a third of young people consume alcohol, and a large portion of that third consume alcohol on a regular basis. I think that is frightening, and I think it is definitely a cause for concern.
So we're not just talking about them experimenting now and then. They are actually drinkers. Just clarify that for us.
So not all of them are regular drinkers, thankfully. Of the 1,100 plus or minus that were surveyed, 12%, there was a 12% and a 25% split between the online research and the face-to-face research that was done. A portion of them, almost a third, are regular drinkers, but regular, of course, is not for a teen or a tween an everyday occurrence. Some of them report alcohol consumption more regularly than others, but we did not survey exactly what regular means for them. But anything more than once is once too many, I would say.
So in terms of exactly why they're doing it or how they're getting their hands on this, are we looking at peer pressure? Are we looking at what they're observing around them when it comes to their families? What exactly is the driver here?
So the biggest drivers of underage drinking are peer pressure, absolutely. And the second one is, in fact, family role modeling. So it is what it is that they see in the household. Another factor is the access that they have to alcohol. A lot of them report that they get it from their peers, of course, and some of them get it from some of their older cadres, comrades, and some of them get it from the household. Another factor that we found is that young people are, in fact, sometimes sold alcohol. Of course, most of them under the guise of purchasing it for someone else, an older person. And the problem arises in that is, in fact, something that happens on a regular basis, that adults send their underage youth to go purchase alcohol for them. So it becomes a sort of normalized practice, and that's how they get their hands on it.
And also, I mean, they sometimes get their children to actually pour their glasses of wine for them in the evening. Now, global trends showing that alcohol consumption in teens is lowering, but not in South Africa. Why?
I mean, I think it's very difficult to compare some of those global studies to what we have in our backyards. So South Africa has a very different set of circumstances to deal with from a socioeconomic point of view. You know, we spoke about the access to alcohol. The other factor, for example, is that the young people have very little alternatives in terms of keeping themselves busy, whereas some of these other countries have access to programs, to recreation, to educational programs, to ways of furthering themselves that are outside of alcohol. But I think that another factor that we do have to bring into this when it does come to the global numbers is that they are doing other things instead of consuming alcohol. So I think that we do eventually catch up with trends, even the good ones, but it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of work that we have to do from a community point of view, all the way to the very top, educating all of society, from our teachers, our caregivers, our parents, to not allow our young people access to alcohol. And then the programs that we run to educate young people around not only the consequences of alcohol or drinking alcohol, because we know that they know that alcohol is bad, but what alternatives are there? What tools can we give them in order for them to go a different route?
And just in terms of the study, did you find in terms of attitudes towards alcohol, there was a difference between boys and girls and how, their perceptions and their attitudes towards drinking?
Not per se attitudes, but there's definitely differences in terms of the drivers. So from a messaging point of view, what kind of drivers would move young people? So the female young people, the girls, are more interested in communication that's around, self-confidence, how to improve my self-confidence and how to improve my self-worth and, getting a sense of belonging. Whereas the young boys are looking at how do they level up, so to speak, and how do they improve their social status and social standing. And not to say that the boys aren't interested in the things the girls are and vice versa, but we did see a difference in this. Another interesting thing that we did see is that there's a difference between the age groups. So when you're talking to your tweens and your younger teens, you are more likely to be successful around educating them and giving them the facts related to the matters, whereas your older youth are more interested in sort of the social, the more peer-led, the more what advances me now kind of messaging, which we found quite interesting.
And very worrying that we have to have these conversations with 10 and 11-year-olds. Thanks very much for that insight. Mokebe Thulo, CEO of Aware.org.
In other news, President Cyril Ramaphosa is encouraging the private